Welcome to Ibex Media Network. Today we are here at ICIMOD headquarters. With me is Dr. Pema. He is the DG to the ICIMOD. Doctor, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, and let me congratulate you for winning this Andres Schill Memorial Mountain Prize for Best Communication on Climate Science.
Thank you so much for nominating us and facilitating us on this award. On behalf of Ibex Media Network, I'll thank you. Thank you so much. ICIMOD has been working regionally and it has regional partners. It's not that easy to work regionally with different countries, right? How ICIMOD feels like how it's difficult to work with regional partners, because climate change is not only an issue of Nepal, Bhutan or Pakistan or India, right? It's a regional issue. Since ICIMOD works in HKH region, how difficult it feels or how it is, or what are the potential challenges you guys feel in collaborating with the regional countries or member countries?
So that's a very pertinent question, I would say. If it is not difficult, then we should not exist. No,
Yes.
ICIMOD is here because it's difficult. So being difficult, and working in a difficult region and giving up is not a solution. So we have to keep working together, and I'm very happy that there is generally increasing appetite for cooperation among our regional member countries. So ICIMOD is actually very privileged that we serve as a platform, as a neutral conveyor for bringing together representatives of our regional member countries to come and discuss regional issues like climate change, like disasters, like air pollution. So I think we have succeeded in building the confidence among our partner institutions and partner countries to come together and work together, and we'll keep doing that.
Yeah. Since the most of landscape is almost same, all these member countries share same landscape, same mountains. So is it easy to work in this similar kind of mountainous region, or you guys feel like it's very hard and difficult, and it's kind of difficult in executing policies because different governments are involved, INGOs are involved, and different sectors involved? How it feels like to work with these member countries, and what's the area where ICIMOD particularly focuses to work?
Right, ICIMOD's mandate is to work on mountain issues, and also to support the mountain communities. So, as you can see, we are for mountains and mountain people. Now, coming to your question, yes, we share similar landscape, and the challenges are similar. The issues we are trying to address are similar. So there is a lot of commonalities. Of course, we have to respect the differences, and if you can just focus on the commonalities, we have, you can see that we have more in common than actually, differences.
Yeah.
So building on that, then we can try to address the specific challenges. While the challenges are similar, there are specific needs in each of the member countries, and even at local levels, the means of addressing those challenges, the solutions will have to be tailor-made to suit the conditions, not just physical conditions, the socio-economic conditions. Because not all regions are developed equally. Not all areas have reached a level of development at the same level. So we need to see how we can best support each community, each country, and share the learnings from each other. So that's how we approach. It's difficult, but we have been quite successful in bringing best practices from one country to another and from one location to another, and that we do this through several approaches. One is we have sort of joint assessments of what is working, what is not working, what is the present status, and what are the future kind of projections. So then based on that, we also bring together scientists to discuss on particular issues, and then we bring the policymakers also to learn from science and see how policies can be improved to address the challenges and the issues. And then we also look at now more and more how we can attract finances
Yeah.
to address these challenges. So there are so many things that we.
You guys and your organization was in COP29, which was held in Baku. So are you satisfied with the events like COP29 that they are going in good direction, or the direction needs to be changed, needs to be prioritized? How do you see this?
Of course, I cannot comment at the the total the outcome of the COP29. Then what I have heard is that the results are not up to the satisfaction of everybody. That the negotiations have fallen short in terms of both commitment as well as in terms of investment. Commitment to invest and so on. So general feeling is that the COP29 has not lived up to the expectations, and that's what I felt. But for this region, for the Hindu Kush Himalayan region, I have reasons to be satisfied because we were able to bring together, the heads of delegations to a high-level event, where we took stock of what is happening in terms of the impacts of climate change on our region, on our cryosphere, on our people's livelihoods, on the kind of disasters that we are facing, the intensity, the frequency. So I think for the region we have reason to be satisfied, and for ICIMOD we have been also quite successful in meeting up with so many partners, the international partners, our regional partners, knowledge partners, practitioners. So in a way for us it has been quite satisfactory.
Is I can see a map behind us. I mean, the ICIMOD has mentioned a map without any border. It shows like all those member countries, all those 7 member countries on the map. How it is important to all these member countries to work together to sort out and to cope against a huge challenge which the whole global world is facing, known as climate change, and to empower and to help those local communities living up in the mountains. How it is important, do you see?
Well, as you rightly mentioned, our focus is on science diplomacy, if you like. And even in our communications, we ensure that we respect the particular sensitivities of our member countries. And we focus on issues that are of a transboundary nature. For example, we're talking about climate change, which you mentioned earlier. It knows no boundaries, no political borders. So what impacts one member country also impacts the other member countries. So you look at global warming, the warming affects everyone.
It has no borders.
And glacier melting is taking place everywhere. So what we try to look at is how the, changes, the events happening in one country affects the other countries, and then bring them together to look at, solutions, how we can, facilitate better exchange of information, better exchange of knowledge and good practices and so on. So transboundary disaster management is another area where disasters, as you know, don't stop at the borders.
Yeah.
So what may start upstream eventually ends up, impacting millions downstream. So these upstream downstream linkages need to be really strengthened. And similarly, air pollution, it impacts everybody. It affects our health, well-being, and at the same time, it also doesn't stop at the borders of our airspace. So we need to work together. Biodiversity, our flora and fauna, the species do not recognize political boundaries.
Yeah.
So they need free movement, between nations, between political borders.
I mean, youth and women, particularly women, are key factors of any society. So how exactly ICIMOD empowers women to cope with their families? One is this question. Second one is, what are the primarily examples or traditionally examples which ICIMOD follows or improves so that the communities that have been practicing those models can be reshaped, can be more valuably aided, and then they can be taken away so that they can cope and they can resist this climate thing. So how ICIMOD has been empowering women, youth, and bringing up those conventional practices?
Okay, one thing we do is we're participating and contributing actively to women's education in climate science and glaciology and all this. So at the moment, as we are speaking, we have a team of young women up on a glacier looking at, even experiencing, the site of a glacier, and also, feeling the atmosphere there, the environment there, and so on. So they will be coming back, with their experience of what it was like, what they have seen, and how they feel that things should be done, and so on, what kind of strategies should be adopted. So education and capacity building is an integral element of what we do. Now, in our work, we ensure that JC, gender equality, social inclusion, is very much taken into consideration. So even going to COP, for example, we ensure that we have a equal, balance of men and women, among our staff participating there. So this representation is there, and so on. Now, looking at the livelihoods and so on, and also the impacts of climate change, particularly disasters, women and youth, children are most affected.
Yes.
So in our, training programs, in our development projects, we ensure that the concerns of the women, the special needs of women and children are taken into account. So this is how we look at, even disaster risk reduction.
Yes. And what are the key practices which earlier people used to do very traditionally to cope with the environmental related issues? Has ICIMOD been able to cope or value aid to those traditional old practices?
Well, what I would say is now the dimensions have reached a scale where, the traditional practices may not be any more relevant. But wherever it is relevant, we also make sure that those are taken into account. So the first step is always to know how, they have been handling or managing or coping with this, in the past. But, as I said, now the scale, nobody would have ever thought the glaciers would melt so fast.
Yes.
No, now floods and disasters, are coming so fast and furious that, people who used to think it comes only once in a decade or,
once in a century.
So simply the capacity to cope.
Is a representative of the northern people, because most of our audience is particularly living in the mountains. If you talk about the Gilgit-Baltistan, we have the highest number of glaciers outside polar region. What exactly ICIMOD has done in Pakistan and particularly in Gilgit-Baltistan?
Well, ICIMOD, first of all, is involved with the assessment of, as you rightly mentioned, how many glaciers are there, how many glacial lakes are there, what is happening in the western part of the Hindu Kush Himalayas. As you know, the Karakoram anomaly, where, till now people have been saying, scientists have been reporting that the glaciers, is increasing rather than decreasing. Now we have established that it's also decreasing there. The glacier mass is decreasing as well in the western Himalayas and the Karakorams and so on. So this assessment is very important. Secondly, we are working with the scientists there, with the agencies there, on setting up monitoring systems, in terms of the rate of glacial melt, in terms of also assessing the potential, glove events that might happen and so on. So yes, this more specifically, we have been working in the Indus Basin, Upper Indus Basin, on bringing together the Chinese and Indian and Pakistani scientists to come together and discuss about the state of the knowledge on the Indus River, what is happening upstream on the source glaciers and so on. So there's been some movement going on, but much more needs to be done there.
So climate change has no boundaries, as you mentioned very well. So how do you see where exactly ICIMOD will be in 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, working with the mountain communities? Where do you see ICIMOD, whether it would be, effectively implementing the policies in copying the climate change, or where do you see yourself in this, like 10 years down the line or 20 years down the line?
Well, what we would see the role of ICIMOD will be increasingly to support our member countries. First of all, to promote cooperation and collaboration, and sharing of information and knowledge. So that will be very important, because I think it is the only institution that could provide that platform for scientific exchange and knowledge sharing and so on. Secondly, it can contribute and support our member countries to, better prepare for, climate change impacts. for disasters related to climate change, globes, glacial lake outburst floods, as well as flash floods and so on. Thirdly, to capacitate our negotiators, climate negotiators, to go with a common voice, present the challenges and issues facing the mountains, and present the loss and damage arguments better, so we could support our member countries to also have better access to global financing facilities such as the GCF and the adaptation fund. So we see our role mainly as a supporter, contributor to this process.
Perfect. Since ICIMOD has been working for the mountain communities, how do you feel like ICIMOD has been able to be the voice of mountain communities? What are the key success stories which you would like to share?
Well, you can say that ICIMOD has been very much instrumental in putting mountains on the agenda. Starting with the Rio Summit in 1992, Chapter 13, Agenda 21. I think ICIMOD has been instrumental in raising the issues of the mountains, the challenges that the mountains are facing, and for example, really bringing out the peculiarities, the specificities, if you like, of the mountain. Mountains are fragile, mountains are vulnerable, mountains are marginalized, and also inaccessibility. So all these dimensions we have been able to, sensitize the global community. And we have been taking this process forward and looking at, how mountains, what is happening upstream in the mountains are impacting downstreams. That ecosystem services that mountains provide, particularly water, affects the lives and livelihoods of millions of people downstream. So when you talk about the Hindu Kush Himalayan region, we're talking about the water towers of Asia. 10 of Asia's major river systems, as you know, originate from this region.
Yes.
The Indus, the Ganges, the Brahmaputra, and all these rivers. So it's very important for us to recognize that ours, often we call the HKH region as the third pole. So third pole is a populated pole. So what is, what we have here, millions of people living within the vicinity of, glaciers and avalanches and so on. So the impact of climate change is already here. It's not something that will happen 50 years down the line or 100 years down the line. We are experiencing disasters much more frequently and with much more intensity now, as you already know.
So what key message we would like to give to the mountain people who live in the mountains, who is most of our audience? What would be your key message?
The key message is that we cannot rely on government alone. Everyone has to be active. Every individual has to be aware of it and also be conscious about how we deal with our environment, how we use our resources. Our lifestyles may have to change. So it is the responsibility of everybody. And every individual can make a difference in the way we live, in the way we consume, in the way we use the facilities. This all contributes to climate change.
Yes.
And everyone can do our part, their part in reducing the impact of climate change.
So your key message is to come out and to work in their own capacity. So one has to not only rely on the government, that they will bring a revolution. It's not like that. You are very much right. Thank you so much for Dr. Pema for your kind time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.